And now, fresh off a 30-year break from his life in over-the-air radio, here's the host of the most originally named 15 Years Too Late podcast, JaySapChats.
Hi.
All right, welcome to JaySapChats, Lauryn Warnick.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, how you doing today? Good?
Yeah, doing well. Yeah, busy
All right.
day.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Awesome. Well, so the format of our show is a little different, right? So like you're an expert in branding. You're the founder and CEO of Villain Branding. I always want to call you Lauren Villain.
No, I'm not a villain. Nope.
Well, it's Villain, right?
It's villain. Nope, it's villain. Yep. Yep. I'm going to send you a dictionary. I promise you that's how villain is spelled.
Well, you're a wordsmith. I believe you. That's how villain is spelled?
Yeah, man.
All right, well, listen.
But you can call it villain. That sounds French. And
hold on. I went to UNLV. So UNLV is an idiot school. So I don't know how to say it.
A little bit. Yeah. Some good partying there though.
So why? Yeah. You think I got a little delay on my start of my life. So why Villain Branding?
The name?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool story with Villain. I think there's probably a couple of reasons why I named the org Villain. First, we talk a lot with our clients about differentiation. The biggest thing in this space is, especially as categories become more and more commoditized, the simplest way to differentiate yourself is by looking at the thing that needs to change. Now, it could be another competitor, it could be a mindset, but there's some enemy that you can choose as a brand and say, this is what we are going up against. If you look at the classic example of, Apple and Microsoft, or Apple and Google, they all have kind of chosen each other as their enemy and their villain, and positioned against it. So Apple being human, Google being literally droid, right? And so I think that helping people to differentiate in a way that is super simple, because differentiating is really hard, and saying, hey, pick one thing that you're going to stand against, and that is your villain. And it gives you focus and simplification. The other side of the coin on the name is that we often talk about storytelling, which is what we do in brand strategy. It's not just kind of delivering the vegetables of brand strategy. It's really about the story that you tell out in the world, is perspective, right? There's a hero and a villain in any story. And for you and your team, your brand is the hero, right? You're a business owner. You talk a lot about what makes your business better and different from others. You are the best in the market, or else you wouldn't be in this business, right? And so setting yourself up and your team up to see that you are the hero in your own story is crucial. But to everyone else in the category, you should be the villain, right? They should be wanting to take you down. You should be so good that they're all constantly trying to beat you and put you out of business. So I think that perspective and storytelling helps our clients understand kind of what we're all about.
That is so brilliant. I can't even tell you like how much that resonates with me, because when I started my first business, it was the first business I ever started was the Exelon Invitational hosted by Jim Furyk. I was the head of sales at Wyncote Golf Club, and the golf course, Heartfelt National, 15 minutes down the road, had a senior PGA Tour event, and I hated them for it. I hated them. Like, I was super competitive as a person, and they had a big clubhouse, and they charged $150 a round. This is years ago. We charged $80, even though I thought our golf course was nicer. And I convinced Pico Energy became Exelon. It was all during the deregulation of energy in the late 90s, that the energy company shouldn't play second fiddle to the phone company. So the exact strategy that you're talking about, I had no idea that I was using it, but I was using it. I was going up against another golf course. That was my villain. And I was using the electric company's feelings of the phone company, again, playing second fiddle to them against them.
Yeah. I mean, that's my favorite thing about branding. Like it's relationships, right? It's the feeling that you as a smart salesperson and smart business owner that you have the gut instincts of what you should do already. It's just hard to figure out how to do it. And that's usually when we get called in.
I love it. So I was saying our format is a little different. Like you're an expert in branding, and that's what your company does. And I love talking about that with you. But what really interests me is the humanization of exceptional founders. And what I specifically mean by that is, I know for me, like I look at these folks that are successful, you included, and I'm like, wow, like it just seems like you were always successful, right? Or you were destined to be successful. But the more I talk to people, some are, some aren't, but the more I talk to people, I realize it's like, maybe you were, maybe you weren't, maybe something happened along the way, maybe there's someone that happened. So I like to really just start kind of at the beginning. So like, where'd you grow up?
Sure. I grew up not too far from where I live now. So I'm on the South Shore of Massachusetts. Grew up here in a blended family. There's 6 of us. And had a working mom who really has been my inspiration for setting your family up for success, prioritization, being super present when you're present. I have 2 young kids now that are 3 and 6, and that's really important to me, especially with owning my own business, is you can work 24/7 and making sure that, I prioritize and I'm there when I need to be there. And so from growing up here, I was always a writer, right? I was always in, the more nerdy English classes and making sure that, if there was a poem to be written or, a story to be told, much to my family's chagrin, because they had to sit through a lot of, poor playwriting performances in my backyard. But it was always about words for me. And so I went to school in Boston. I went to BU, and we decided that I would pursue my love of film and get a screenwriting degree. I say we decided because my parents were very supportive in that, which I don't know if I would be for my own kids. It's a pretty ridiculous major to go after. But I loved screenwriting, and I loved the ability to tell a story on film. And so I got a great, business background in how to tell a story. And I thought that for sure I would move to New York and HBO would hire me and I would be, running the place in a few years. That shockingly didn't happen. I moved to New York and took on a role at a tech startup. And that kind of became my career of sort of moving into tech startups and moving into big agencies and sort of flip-flopping between different ways that I could use the written word to tell stories. It might be through user experience, might be through kind of a little bit more journalism on the editorial front, or on the brand side of things at agencies, really helping businesses find a way to externally articulate their business strategy in a way that resonated with people. And so that's the crux of my career.
So let's back up. You blended family. How many brothers and sisters?
So I have 1 full brother, I have
Okay.
3 sisters, and I have 1 half sister.
Everybody close in the family?
Emotionally close. Yeah, we're all great. We're all in New England for the most part. My youngest sister, who just had a baby last week, actually, congratulations.
Awesome.
I know, it's the best. They're in New York, so they're the furthest away. My brother and I are only like a half an hour away from each other, if that.
Got it. So, where do you start to take shape in the words piece? Is it like middle school, or is it like immediate, like
Immediate.
earlier than that? Like, and when you say,
Yeah.
are you on a computer? Are you reading books? Was there an early book? Was there an early author that you can think of that sort of did it for you, or how you were introduced to it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It was more kind of like storytelling and just sort of seeing what got people and myself emotionally invested. So it was theater and looking at, and being part of or watching plays. It was, Shel Silverstein and reading those poems. It was Dr. Seuss and seeing pattern and how you could make up words. I think it was a little bit of everything. Certainly, movies and being a good little millennial, being big on Disney animation. And sort of understanding how storytelling had a specific pattern is not something that I understood until I was much older. But I think picking up vocabulary from different books and different mediums was a big thing for me, because I found that I think it got people's attention when I was 3 or 4 using words that were much bigger than I was able to or should have been able to use, and using them improperly most of the time. But I think just like the reaction and being captive and learning comedic timing and that kind of stuff is really seeing the emotional change and the change in how people react depending on, what I was saying and the story I was telling, for better or worse, was definitely what kind of gave me the bug, I think.
So you didn't need a push to do your homework. Like you were all in on doing your homework, like
Oh, and
good.
math and science, for sure I did. If I like, I'm allergic to numbers, but
Yeah,
on the English front, yeah, for sure, I loved it. I loved
got
writing.
it. You just did it. You're right. Nobody needed to push you on it, and that was the deal.
Yeah,
And now, were you a theater kid? Were you
it
in the
was.
theater? Like, so you were in the theater and in the
Yeah,
shows?
I was like a camp counselor at a local theater group, and like, yeah, did lots of plays and stuff. It was fun. Tried to be like a musical theater triple threat, but I can't dance or sing. So, did my best.
It's funny because that's the route that my daughter went. She was a theater kid, my oldest, and she's now you talk about like, what am I going to do with this career, or like, what are you going to do when you get out of college? First off, I don't think anybody knows what they're going to do when they go into college, and I don't think they have an idea of what they're going to do when they go out of college. This concept of knowing what you're going to do from the time you're 15 or 16 is like, to me, you talk about the ultimate story in fairy tale. That's the ultimate story in fairy tale,
So true.
including professional athletes. This is all I ever wanted to do. It's like, no kidding. It's all I ever wanted to do. But, I mean, the odds of it coming true, I mean, especially for people who do hobbies
Yeah,
as professions,
yeah, yeah.
athletes, entertainers, comedians versus an actor's pipe dream.
Agreed. It's hard. I mean, I completely agree with you. I think there's like an innate passion and innate love that you have for something. So, what's your daughter doing now?
She's in sales.
But yeah, perfect, because that's storytelling, right? Like that is.
Yes.
There's so much of that there. It's the best sales folks are never selling you something. They're telling you a story and showing you a narrative arc, right? And so if you're a theater kid, you don't know that, you know that better than anyone else.
Well, also you're also very, very familiar with performance, right? And getting in front of people in one take, you know what one take's like, so you understand the pressure of that. And then I think the most critical skill, whether it's in your role or it's in a sales role, is the ability to take criticism, because we're listen, and positioning, right? You're constantly getting feedback, you from your clients or me from my clients, or in sales, that's the way it is, right? You're giving it's a give and take, and it's got to be iterative. And that, to me, like, I remember when she interviewed for the role, she's in the same role that she got right out of college. First off, it was fast. It took a couple of weeks. Second, she said, the manager who interviewed me was smiling the whole time. I think he thinks half of what I was saying I was making up. And I said, well, what you don't understand is he doesn't care that half of what you were saying you may have been making up. All he wants to be able to understand is that you have the ability to think on your feet, and you can creatively speak with somebody. Now, whether she made it up or not, I wasn't on the interview, but
Yeah.
that's the deal.
Yeah. It's reading the room. It's reacting live. It's, having the confidence to, to your point, not have ego in what you're saying and getting feedback and coming back for more. Right. And, sales is a hard slog of a job, no matter how you frame it. New business, like, CEO, whatever. You're all at a sales point at some point in your career. And it's hard to not take it personally. And it's hard to see through what people are kind of saying to you directly and understand what the
Yeah,
intent behind it is.
I totally take it personally. So, all right. So you go to high school, and any jobs through high school? Did you work through high
Yeah,
school?
yeah. My first job, I was 14, and I was a bra fitter at JCPenney. Yeah. Um,
What is it? I don't want to ask. I do
no,
want to ask.
it's
What's a
exactly,
profit? Is
yeah,
exactly what it sounds like.
exactly what it sounds like. It's like,
That's a job. It's not like you don't
for
just
sure.
take
No,
oh,
you gotta like go in, you gotta measure the cup, and yeah, it's at 14, I had no business doing it. I don't have any business doing it now at 40, but it was humbling.
I can imagine.
I mean, I think it's crucial for kids as soon as they can to get a job. It's just, I think no matter what you're doing, I worked at JCPenney, I worked at Office Max, and I was selling pens. As a writing nerd, I was like, this will be the best job ever. I'll get office supplies. I'll get paper and pens. And I was just on my feet for 12 hours at a cash register. And, you realize like not every job is as cool as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
I was a student counselor, which was exhausting. And I think for 10 years didn't want to have kids after that job. I just think it's important to kind of help you to understand where you fit in the world, and that you're not, I don't want to say entitlement is a thing, but like everyone thinks that they're bigger than they are, and kind of being put in your place and understanding you're just a cog in the wheel, I think is important for kids of all ages.
So you worked from 14 till you went away to college.
And I worked in college too. Yep.
Was there anyone, we'll get to that. Is there anyone inside those years? I know you mentioned your mom was a tremendous influence, but outside the house, was there anybody who you observed or saw that influenced you in those early years at those sort of like entry level jobs?
No, I don't think at the jobs. I think in school, I had an English teacher who I was just talking to my husband about her yesterday, actually, who was just very good at her job. She was my AP Lit teacher senior year. There were 20 or so of us in the class, if that, maybe 15 or so of us in the class. And she knew the test so well. And, she said, it's been 5 or 6 years since there's been a Thomas Hardy poem on the AP Lit test. I think this is going to be the year. And sure enough, we studied the heck out of Thomas Hardy. We opened the first page of the AP Lit exam, and there was the convergence of the twain. And we all could dissect that poem left, right, and center. And the vast majority of us got 4s and 5s on the test. And I say that not as like a performance thing, but as a teacher, it just felt like she did her own homework. She was putting in as much effort as we were putting in. She wasn't telling us what to do so much as being on the journey with us. She had incredibly high standards for all of us. She set them on day one. And she celebrated our successes and helped us when we were, struggling a little bit, which naturally you were. It was a difficult class. It was pretty demanding, but you wanted to perform well for her. And I think that was a great leadership moment for me, right? She was in the trenches with us, but she was prepared. She did her job so that we could do ours better. And I think that was all of that learning from Mrs. Ack was a fantastic kind of base for me as an employee and as a leader.
Sure, good student. You have opportunities to go to, I'm sure, a variety of schools. Take me through the process of staying close to home and BU.
Yeah, I didn't want to, Jay. I'll be honest with you. I was like, I wanted to go to LA. I wanted to go to USC and film school, and just
sure, it's the best.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to go there? Shockingly, they didn't want me, and so
you didn't get accepted to USC.
I did not get accepted to USC. Nope. I got rejected from USC. I didn't apply to UCLA, but I was that was like on my potential list at some point. I applied to Yale, did not get into Yale. I got probably more rejections than I think I got acceptances now that I'm going through the list. I got waitlisted at a few other schools. I got some great scholarships at a few other smaller schools and state schools. So I had like a great list of places I could go, and BU was like a last minute ad. It was like, this is a good communication school. They have a small film school. Like, sure, I'll throw it in here. I want to be in the city.
Well, going back, you wanted to be in a city. So going back to the USC thing, was that a big disappointment? Was that like a gut punch? Was that like something you had like taken years and wanted to be part of, and then the world came crashing down and mom needs to pick up the pieces type of a deal?
Yeah, kind of. It was,
Wow.
I got rejected from USC and NYU's Tisch School on the same day. And on that day, I was a softball player and I was terrible. We were like Division 5 or something, and we were not great. We were just a terrible team overall. But we all showed up and we all did it. And I was the catcher, and I had the classic, bad movie writing. The starred player on the other team is trying to steal home, and I've got the ball, and she knocks me over and the ball falls out of my hand and we lose the game. It was that scene. So that happened that day. And then I was driving home super upset about having no future and losing. I can't even win a game, all this. And I got in a car accident, totally fine, on the way home. And so I remember distinctly my mom saying, let's go up in your room and not leave for the day. Because sometimes when this kind of day happens, you just got to start over. So I had friends that knew that I was upset and they were like, hey, we're going to take you out. My mom was like, she cannot leave this house because who knows what's going to happen to her today. It's just a bad luck day. So they came over and, cheered me up and stuff, which was great. But yeah, it felt like the worst day of my life for sure. When you're 17, it's hard to come through that.
I mean, that's amazing. Lost the game, crashed the car, got rejected by the two schools that were at the top of your list on the same day.
Yep. Yeah. It was a good punch in the face, but here I am.
That's all, by the way, that's pre-social media.
Which is good, right? Like, thankfully, it was all
good, beyond good.
Yeah, that would not have been a fun. Yeah, like having days like that. I don't know. I think about that a lot, and probably because I have kids, and your kids are older, so you can tell me. But I just think that being able to make mistakes and being able to have bad days and being able to just like
invaluable.
Yeah, and kids can't do that anymore. Like, I mean,
Very
obviously
hard.
they do, but it's just everything's documented, and it's hard to move away from that.
Yeah, extremely hard. You mentioned something about the movie scene. Is that how you like? Do you go through life like that? Do you see scenes in your mind as you go through life? Is that part of like your creative mind working constantly? Like something happens and then it's you.
Yeah, probably more like a storybook or, like a shot by shot than like a full scene. I do. I mean, in strategy, it's a lot of, it has to be storytelling. You're taking your clients on a journey of what their brand could be, right? And a lot of times it's very different from where they are, and you have to make sure that they're understanding each step along the way. You can't just get to the end. They have to understand the conflict they're going through, et cetera. So yeah, I think in step-by-step pieces. I definitely think in how we're going to get there and that I would love to say I see a beautiful ending before, but I like the messy middle. I like kind of seeing when there's a whole pile of stuff that needs to be sorted, and I like the sorting process. So that's kind of why I say I like it. I liken it more to a shot list or, storyboarding, because I think I like seeing how, okay, well, what if we move this piece over here? So it's kind of like if you were a film nerd, Russian montage, that's sort of what they were known for, is that they didn't have a ton of money. And so they used found footage and created different stories based on cutting the film strips in different ways to tell different reaction shots, right? You'd see a guy with one facial expression, then you'd see it fly in his soup, and then you'd come back and see the same facial expression, but you would read that facial expression differently. And I think that's kind of how I think about sorting stories, is there are pieces that you can move around and tell different stories in it. And I like that part of the puzzle.
So we'll get to college in a second, but I just want to interrupt because you had earlier, talked about growing up on Disney, but you ended up working for Disney.
As a client, yeah. Yeah, for a little bit. I worked on a Tim Burton Disney project. Yeah, it was fun.
I mean, is that like dream come true, or is that?
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to work for Disney? It was great in that they live the magic. I don't know how familiar you are with Disney and like cast members and how they how they call themselves.
Brother-in-law worked there for 4 years,
so exactly it, right?
No,
like there's no faking it. Like everyone there is living that dream. Now it's a business for sure, right? And that's primarily who we worked with. It was the kind of distribution and business side. But we, I met with Imagineers and a lot of the theme park folks, and these people are the top of their craft, of course, and they're brilliant storytellers. They're incredible magic makers. And so from that standpoint, it was very much like I was, looking at legends in the making, because I was. But it was also like, oh, they still need a little bit of help too, right? Everybody does. Everybody needs a little bit of a push in figuring out kind of specific challenges. And in this case, it was kind of talking about how Tim Burton and Disney would come together potentially as very different brands working together. So it was a cool project.
Love it. So, all right. So you go to Boston, and live in the dorms?
Yeah.
You know your roommate when you go, or don't know your roommate when you go?
We met. So my roommate Kate lived about 45 minutes from me. So we met up at the old South Shore Plaza in Massachusetts, and we got on really well. She's fantastic. We still are in touch now. Yeah, she's great. Her kids are a little bit older than mine, but Kate's the best. And we had a lot of fun. Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. And then do you get involved in any of the communities inside of BU? Are you part of the theater? Are you part of the writing? Are you part?
Nope. I
Tell,
went, I did, this is, I didn't love my experience at BU. I
okay.
thought that it was a great education. And I liked being in the city, but it wasn't a super welcoming environment. You didn't go there for like the campus life. Some people, I have a lot of friends who like were all in on it for sure. And did a ton of club sports and that kind of thing. And I did a couple of, extracurriculars there. But I really found my super core friend group when I studied abroad in Australia, my junior year. And that was that, and kind of my film nerds were like the pockets within a very large organization.
How'd you choose Australia?
I wanted to get the hell out of the States. Yeah, that was it. How can I go as far away as possible?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So college was a little bit of angst for you.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, I had my first like big heartbreak freshman year, and like all the things that you're supposed to do in college. I partied too much. I got a couple of bad grades, then like I recovered, and I was like, studying too much, and it was just finding out where you fit in the world, and like, and to your point, like, what am I supposed to do? I'm gonna have $100,000 worth of loans when I come out of this. Like, how am I gonna get a job? And all those things, you're figuring out how to be an adult and be who you are. And so I thought, let me run away from everything, go to Australia. They had a film program there, which that was great. But and it was the best decision I made in college.
Yeah. So it's so funny. I mean, first off, you're talking to a guy who went every summer, and it took me some would argue 5.5 years to get out of college. Most embarrassing thing I've ever had, one of the most embarrassing things I ever had, is I was working at a villa rental company called Wimco Villas, and we were buying and investing and opening entrepreneurial venture on St. Bart's, which is a French territory. In a French territory, when you own something, you have to submit to a background check. As part of the background check, they wanted my college transcripts.
Oops.
Yeah. You know that meme with the smile that's like that,
Yeah,
like the
totally.
ish smile? I had no idea what a screw up I couldn't believe it. So the owner of the company, my partner, rest in peace, he said to me when he saw it, he goes, wow, he goes, I would have never asked you to come work for this company if I had seen this.
There you go. You hit it well.
I mean, I must have had 6 Ds, like drops all over the place, couple Fs.
And clearly it was telling of how successful you would be in the future, right? Like it's all bullshit.
It is a little bit, when I sat with people later in life, so, I went into the private jet world and I was in the sales realm there. And when I would sit with people that were extremely smart, I would feel overmatched and I'd feel less than, because I didn't feel like I had the same intellectual capability. I've since processed that and looked back on my time in college that it's very similar to how I've structured my life, which is I'm able to navigate my way through and persist. So my story is one of persistence more than it is of massive achievement. And my reality is sometimes persistence is enough because there's so many people who quit halfway along the path.
I think so too. And I think it's a balance of knowing when to quit or knowing when to pivot and knowing when to keep going and where. I would agree with you. I mean, I taking my first job out of college in New York, at a tech startup, everyone was Ivy League, and except for me and maybe one or two other folks. And I felt the same way. And I felt like I constantly had to work harder because I wasn't as smart, as those folks. And it took me a long time to realize like intelligence is multi-burst, and multifaceted. And it doesn't have any measure on your direct success, right? Like you can be the smartest person in the world, but not know how to apply it. Or you can be less than, but work really hard. And that's, kind of where I am, to get, and read the room as best you can and try and be a little bit more of a, sort of maybe social success.
I'll argue with that. You're really smart.
Uh-oh.
How'd you get your first job?
Out of school? Connections. Yeah, a friend that I studied abroad with, her brother worked there. So I got an interview. Shout out to Karen and Michael. Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, wow. I mean, so that's like an early positive networking story and something that, like you said, Australia changed. Do you think that Australia trip changed the course of your life? I mean, obviously, right? It changed the course of your life.
Yeah, I think that there are certain moves that you make in the moment. You really like choosing a college, that's going to have a massive impact on your life. And, there are some more sliding doors moments that you don't know, that they're going to have the largest impact. But Australia, I definitely knew was going to change me some way, shape, or form. It was just, there was no safety net. My parents couldn't rescue me. I wasn't an hour from home. There was no one, checking on how I, did my homework or not. It was a pretty easy course load. Um, and there was a lot of partying there. I knew that was going to be the case. So it was sort of a like, how am I going to handle this too? Um, so yeah, I think I knew in the moment it would have a difference. I just didn't know how, in what way.
So you go to college, you get a job out of there, you go to New York City, you're a South Shore Boston kid. Uh, you like the city, don't like the city, love the city, love
Loved
it,
it.
love
Yeah,
the energy.
everything. Yeah, I loved that. Every neighborhood is its own kind of has its own pulse, and so you could find your own place there. It was, not unlike my experience at BU, right, where it was so large that I could feel overwhelming. But I think that going to New York, I could say, okay, in this neighborhood or with this group of friends, I can have a certain life, which felt good.
Now, are
Everyone.
you Now, are you connected at all at this point? You're 23, 22, 24, or something like that. Are you connected at all with entrepreneurship? Do you know you can be a business? I never knew I could be a business owner. My dad was a school teacher. My mom was a bookkeeper. Like other people own businesses, I worked for them. That's how I did it, right? That's how life was. Were you connected with entrepreneurship at all?
So it's a great question. I was, and then I worked for tech startups. So we were part of like incubators and those kinds of things. So I worked closely with founders and CEOs a lot, but I had the same mindset as you. Like my job is to support someone else's business. My job is to help tell a story that brings their vision to life, or my job is to operationalize what they want to do to make, kind of money. It wasn't ever a dream that I would own my own business. It was never on my radar.
We're talking to Lauryn Warnick. She is the founder and CEO of Villain Branding. Brilliant woman, brilliant name, and incredible company that you've built. I admire your client list. It's
Thank you.
spectacular. 3 years at that company. Why do you leave? Like, what happens? Like, what's the next step for you?
It was a point where I felt like I needed to have agency experience to be a quote unquote true creative. It was one of those things like, everything that I wanted to do. How do you tell a story? Can I write a campaign? I felt like I didn't have the creds to do that at another company until I got a more well-versed portfolio. And so I had a couple of mentors at that first company that, made some introductions. I remember I interviewed at JWT, big ad agency, through that connection, and I brought my little rinky-dink portfolio of pixelated images and just sort of one brand. And the recruiter was incredibly kind, and she said, "Okay, let me show you some other portfolios to just show where the bar was for these folks." And I was like, "Oh, damn, I'm so in over my head here." But she was great, and she was like, "I think you're really smart, and I think you're really ambitious, and I think, you know." If you want to have a future in this business, I think you certainly could, but I want to give you a sense of where the competition is. And so it was great. I left that role to pick up a bunch of freelance work to build out my portfolio and build out my brand. And thankfully, one of the freelance roles that I took was at Interbrand, which is one of the biggest and best brand agencies in the world.
So classic case of going from client side to agency side to learn more of the business, see multiple clients at the same time, and just round yourself out. Where's the ambition come from? Where's that come from inside of you? Like where's the you everything you're talking about is this competition. Like where is the competition? Where is it? Where's the drive come from?
Yeah, I think it's anxiety. I naturally have a lot of anxiety. I think it's just like, wanting to sort of feeling insecure and wanting to make sure that, I'm better. I'm better than the last version of myself, and I'm keeping up with the Joneses. That was what it was for a long time when I was younger. Now that I'm older, I see it. I see success very differently. Before it was, what's my title? How much am I making as much money as these people? Am I saying, interesting stories? And then it was probably in my, mid 30s, not to jump ahead, where like I started to feel like um, I'm boring. Like, I'm talking about work all the time. This is so boring. Like, why am I talking about these stupid stories that my friends don't have any interest in? And is this what I want in life, kind of thing? And so I think my motivations of success have shifted in the last, 10, 15 years. But I think that anxiety continued to push. And like I said with, Ms. Zackinson as my English teacher, like having folks that pushed and raised the bar and said, "Hey, this is just what's expected of you. You're expected to be the best at this. Like, I see it in you. You can do this." I say to my kids a lot, "You can do hard things. Like, I know you can get through this tough thing because I've seen you do it before." And having folks like my mom, right, being a really ambitious and driven woman, she was a only female technologist in her and 40,000 person company. And so just seeing someone like that succeed really well and constantly push themselves was all the motivation I think I needed at the time.
As you interact with other founders, were you surprised, or did it did you feel like I'm surprised, like a lot of founders are really insecure people, and they're coming from a place of like there's all different types, but a lot of them are like chasing ghosts of themselves. Did that surprise you, or was that something you kind of expected, or I mean, never thought of?
I hadn't thought of it, to be honest with you. I didn't. I think that I thought that most founders and most CEOs had everything figured out. They were much smarter than me.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. It just felt like these were different levels of humans than I was, and certainly some of them are, right. Like there are
Yes.
some folks who are just operating on another level, and you're like, man, I can't wait to watch what you do. Um, and then there are as you progress in your career, I think it's like anything else. You realize that these are just humans and they are struggling and they have strengths and weaknesses. And the closer that you get to working with them, being, a marketing leader in house, because I flip flopped after agencies back into marketing roles in house, and being around that table with these CEOs and saying, "Oh no, yeah, you don't really know what you're doing either. That's okay. We're all figuring it out." And so seeing how well they adapted to their own insecurities was more of a motivator for me. Did they understand it and accept it and work around it, or were they kind of blind to it and less self-aware and sort of plow through it? And that was telling too.
Yeah. You want to know which personality type I get along with better?
I can guess, but yeah, tell me.
Yeah, no, believe me, no, trust me, not the ones that are completely oblivious. We
I'm done with those days.
oh my gosh, we talk about people who fail up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they tend to have a specific profile too, unfortunately.
Believe me, sell private jets for a minute, you'll figure that out.
I'm quite sure. Yeah, I can guess who your main target was.
My gosh, so all right, so uh, VP of brand and marketing at Chartbeat. And then what happens that you just decide that it's time? Like that's the jumping off point for you to start your own
Yeah.
business? Is it, I want a family, I want freedom, I want money, I want
Yeah.
like
Great.
what happens?
Yeah, great question. So my time at Chartbeat was incredible. They're still a client of mine. And that team is fantastic. And I learned, as employee, I don't know, 7 or 8, maybe. I can't remember exactly what number. So first marketing hire, and then we grew to, I think, like 200 something at one point. And so I was managing a fairly large marketing team. I was learning sales ops and rev ops and, all that side of stuff that is not my specialty, which is communications and design and, that side of things. And so the learning that I got there in those 4 or 5 years was incredible. And it was a combination of, the company being at a different place, right? We had scaled pretty well, but weren't really sure what we were going to be when we grew up. And, marketing was turning into less of a vision exercise and more of an operational exercise, an optimization exercise. That was one point. And I'm not fantastic at that. So knowing my own strengths and weaknesses. Two was, yeah, I didn't want to be in New York anymore. I'd been there about 10 years and, I found myself coming back to Massachusetts more often and breathing in the salty air and just kind of wanting to be closer to home and family and just like in general, I think I was at the point of I'd run away from home for so long. Now I was ready to come back. And then, third, I think I was just at the point, because when I decided I was going to leave Chartbeat, I was interviewing for other, CMO and VP of marketing roles at other startups. And I would meet the founder and the CEO, and I would love the vision that they had for the business. And I'd get into, a final round, and we'd be like, this is what we're going to do. And it's going to crush. And then I would meet with the executive team, and it would be like, oh, but I've got to like put an SEO strategy in place. Like I've got to like bring on SDRs and manage go to markets. Like I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to solve this like big hairy problem of what is the brand going to be in the market. And so that's when I decided that, starting my own thing as a solopreneur was my game plan.
So how's it start? Is it
Freelance? Yeah, it was freelance. It was just reaching out
freelance while you're working for other people, or freelance?
Freelance, totally. So nope, I didn't have time when I was working at Chartbeat. It was a decision working with them saying, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. I think
so. You quit your job without a job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is it always? I wasn't married. I had a mortgage, which was not great, but I wasn't married, didn't have kids. Like I had that freedom and that flexibility to say, like, I think I can get enough business. I'd put out feelers to say, hey, do you need any brand support kind of thing? So I had an idea that I could probably get some business, and Chartbeat was incredibly supportive. John Seraph, the CEO there, was great. Tony Hale, who was the founding CEO, dear friend of mine still, they were fantastic to say, like, what is the best working relationship? Where do you think you can add the most value from, an outside perspective? And so that gave me the sort of safety net to be.
They stayed on as a client.
Yeah, and
so
they still are.
Yeah, and they helped you launch your. They felt so highly of you. They helped you launch your business by giving you that safety net of you can go out on your own, and they're your first. You already had a client.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
getting clients. That's the job.
The trust that you build, and that's why my network was so important too, because I tapped folks that I'd worked with in the past, and a handful of them are like, yeah, we got work for you today. And so
what was the original name of the business?
It was Villain Branding. Always, yeah. I mean, if you're a verbal identity, verbal design brand studio, and we do naming, you got to have going with a strong name, I think. Yeah,
I mean, that's amazing. I mean, yeah.
You do it, our finances and our bookkeeping, which I don't do anything with, that has changed significantly over the years, but our name has stayed the same.
How strong of a name is Ink Stores? I mean, that's a real differentiator, huh?
Yeah, you're 10 out of 10. Yeah, it's great. No, I loved it.
You're lying. Stop.
I love it.
You are lying.
It's great. It's a descriptive, slightly suggestive name. It's fantastic. You got a little coinage there, so you got a little ownability. You're good.
Yeah. You know what's good about my company's name is everybody in the space has the name Inked in it.
Yeah.
Everybody who prints, they already have the name Inked, so nobody can sue anybody because it's the most common name in the industry.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
That industry.
always thinking I am. Yeah. I'm super smart. Yeah. Awesome. So when's the business take off? When is it like, all right, Lauren's an entrepreneur. Lauren's like got her own, like, are you chasing mom and dad being proud? Are you like, is it just survival mode?
Yeah, it was like post mode. I think it was like a shift in priorities. It was like my job now could be a job rather than like my entire life, like it was in New York. And so around the same time that I founded Villain, I met my husband, and, I bought a house, and it just was like a good rebalance and recentering for me. And I think that that's probably why like it worked so well, because I was taking on the work that I wanted to take on. I was giving myself a breather when I needed it. The ambition was different. The ambition was like an ambition for life and supporting my life rather than, my career as my life. That has shifted a little bit more over the last few years, having kids. And, my husband left his job 3 years ago to come work for the business too. He manages the business ops side, whereas I manage the client side. And so, it's now become more of a family business. So the pressures are different naturally. And that's probably when my husband left his job to come on board. That's probably when we decided to turn it into, rather than sort of a hustle, into a proper business. Like I've never seen myself as an entrepreneur, I think, until that moment when I started to say, okay, let's get business operations going. Let's, professionalize this and, become adults in this business rather than me and a couple of friends writing some words down. So it's a little different.
Do you think the kids is what made you sort of take the shift to want to make, I mean, listen, it's about making the business bigger, but listen, bigger business, bigger issues, bigger responsibilities, it's hard. I mean, whether it's employees or contractors, they're still people. And, your customers and clients, They don't care if it's a contractor or an employee. They only care that the job, they only care about their problem, not yours.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you still have to manage all of that. Like, when did you decide that that was the right, like, take me through that, like, leaping off point, and when the decision was made, and over what time period was it made? And
Yeah. Yeah. It was probably a good year after my second was born. So, she's 4 in August. So it was probably like my pregnancy through there. It was COVID, which was a weird time too, right? Like, and I think it was it was then that, like, and it just became a situation where my husband and I talk a lot, like, two two parents working full time is not super tenable for, raising kids the way that we wanted to raise our kids. We wanted to be more present. He was working sports late at night and having to work weekends, and then I wasn't able to take on jobs that I wanted to take on because I needed to be home more often. If they were sick, it fell on me, that kind of stuff. So we did a couple of things, which was like shoring up our support network. So we have an amazing nanny, who is incredible and takes care of our kids. Has taught them, got them potty trained and teaches them math while they're eating lunch. Like, just incredible, incredible. And I say this because we would not be able to do what we do without the support of um, our village, as it were. And then him leaving his job to say he could be the kind of default for the kids when necessary. He could take on we need to have a plumber come over at noon today, right? Like, he could be home for that, so that we could then make every decision that we made as a family, which included business decisions. So oftentimes I would say, still do, like, he's fully, he's briefs on all of the new business opportunities that we have. And if we have a huge one that comes in, it's like, okay, I'm going to be MIA for a month. Can you handle, stepping up on XYZ? And it's a family decision to make that. It's a family decision to invest in, our fractional CFO. We have a fractional AI consultant that works with us now, our business ops folks, which contractors we're going to bring in to work with us on projects. It's all a family decision of how we approach it.
you look at a new client, right? So is it all referral or out?
No, not all, but certainly a lot of it. Yeah.
So when you look at a new client, what impact is your ability to make a difference I'm sure you said no to clients, right? Where do you weigh your ability to make a difference in a client? Because listen, if you're like me, so I'm ruined. I can't walk into, or as Stewie would say, ruined. I can't walk into a retail store and not see how things are printed. I mean, saw the guy at a golf tournament. He had a Barstool T-shirt on. It was like sideways. I'm like, how can you wear that? People don't
Yeah.
know. But
Right.
so you're ruined because I'm sure you analyze, like, you see a commercial or you see a brand and you're like, dumb waste. Like, I mean, I could tell you right now, like Salesforce and the Matthew McConaughey commercials, like, he doesn't like shrimp cocktail. That's the value add. Like, so
Yeah, I think
how important is it in knowing you can help them to your brand?
crucial. And we work with a pretty specific ICP. We work with mid-enterprise B2B companies, typically in advanced tech or professional services. And so I say that because they tend to be like dusty companies. They tend to be older companies that did really well and then plateaued, or a PE firm came in, they're, have a carve out. Like, there's some kind of like thing that is like they are ready to get their groove back, right? They are ready to be transformed. But there are also folks who are in that position and they think that they're ready. They're being told that they need to do X, but they're not set up that way. So it is 99% chemistry with the CMO and CEO that matters to me. So
you need buy-in from the first meeting.
For sure. Yeah, because we have to work so closely together to make it work. Because people think that brand is a logo, a tagline, a color palette, see you later. We look at brand as true value. You should be making money off your brand. An average company has 30 to 70% of their business value is held in their brand. People will choose your brand off the shelf, proverbially, over someone else's. They will pay more for it because they like where you are. They're going to stick around and keep working with you and buy other things that you offer just because of what your brand is. Like, that's measurable money coming in.
Yeah. So
and if you don't approach it that way, then and you don't think about it that way, then the engagement's not going to work.
One of the authors that I love is named Jeffrey Fox. one of the books he's written is really his biggest hit was How to Become a Rainmaker. I talk about it all the time. It shaped my life. Talks about dollarization and sort of what, how do you put it into numerical terms, financial terms for a client, as to what your solution's going to do for them. You talk about that with brand a lot. You're presenting stories. How do you then take the stories and dollarize those to, like, is it math? I mean, you said you're not great at math, but is there a process that you've
Yeah.
undergone?
Yeah, for sure. So, yes, I'm not great at math, but you're a business owner. Like, you better be close to the P&L, right? You better know for sure.
Yeah, I get it. You're when I say you're not good at math, that's trig and calculus. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Totally,
Yes.
totally.
Yeah,
And
dollars and cents are the math that you're good at. Yes.
for sure, you have to be, right? And I
Totally.
know that with my clients, right? You're working with an $800 million, $2 billion business. Like, they're caring about the bottom line for sure. And so, yes, we come in with that as the first thing that we say is like, hey, we're going to move the needle for you. Now, it may be in quantitative brand tracking. We may do a brand tracking study every quarter and we say, okay, how has perception shifted, right? And then we tie that perception shift to, like I said, choice, right? So people are choosing your brand more often, which means that your sales qualified leads should be increasing. You should be able to charge more, right? Increasing your pricing because people will buy your brand more because they associate with this story more, right? So the process that we take is we go through and we understand, how are you relevant to your target buyer, right? So what do they care most about? Why are they choosing you over someone else? If they're not, why should they be, right? What are you leaving on the table? So relevancy, differentiation, we've talked about a ton, right? Can they choose you out of a crowd? That's especially important and why we like working with professional services and advanced tech because they're commoditized businesses. There's either hyper complexity in what they do, like in advanced tech, right? It's hard to explain, hard to understand. Or you're in this space where it's, KPMG's word against PwC's, right? Like they do similar things and it's hard to explain because their people make the difference. And so how you capture that and explain it is really, really hard. And so that differentiation in those spaces is really tough. And then credibility. I think you get a lot of companies that feel like they either are not getting credit for what they're doing because they're not telling their story well enough. They're kind of competing on features instead of the emotional why. Or they are sort of overselling and they're saying, hey, we do something that they can't actually do yet. And so they're kind of breaking the trust that they should be working hard to build. So we kind of take a three-pronged approach to say, how do we find that meeting place between relevancy, differentiation, and credibility to kind of pinpoint what's going to be a successful brand? And then how do we use the KPIs that you're tracking already to see if that brand is making an impact once it's launched? Are we seeing shorter sales cycles because the clients are getting it? The prospects are like, oh, I see your brand out there. I see your message out there in marketing. I'm understanding what you're doing. So the sales cycle is shorter because I don't need to be explained so much on what I'm getting, right? Maybe it's architecture that we did where we're reformatting how they go to market and choice and how they're driving, people are able to choose them more often. Okay, great. That means that cross sells and upsells are easier. Because people understand what package to choose right away, what the offering is there. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that we can look at it. It's really like, what is the specific problem that the business has? Is it more about differentiation? Is it more about sales enablement and getting everyone to tell the same story? And then we zero in on that and then we measure to see if that's gotten better or not.
When you look back at your story, are there any pivot points or regrets? Or, I mean, we all look back. Like, for example, I look back at my story and, if I had my act together when I was 25 years old, I'd have been the Philadelphia Phillies play-by-play announcer.
Yes, that would be amazing. Correct.
I mean, by the way, I don't say that as a,
No,
I was on air at WIP. I was extremely popular. I was 23 years old when I got that job and I couldn't get my head out of my ass. I was just a knucklehead. And instead of parlaying being on the air at 23 years old into great relationships with all of the teams in town and then following my dream path because I was in broadcasting, TV in Philly, Phillies play-by-play, and the whole thing, right? Because I was buttoned up and put together, I ended up leaving radio and coming into the world of sales. Now, it worked out and I've had a fun life, private villas and St. Bart's and private jets, net jets and all that good stuff. But I, I, I definitely had that path in me. Is there anything you look back on in your career where you're like, it could have gone this way and that would have happened, or here we are and this is perfect?
Yeah, I mean, lame, but I think this is perfect and where I'm supposed to be. I think, it's and I hate to be like, cheesy about it, but if I hadn't made those mistakes, I wouldn't be here now. Now, there's certainly things that I regret about my career. I think I was too harsh on people that worked with me a lot, right? And I thought that like I had to be like, act more masculine and more like, really cutthroat to get ahead because I saw a lot of other folks doing that. There are ways that I approach problem solving, right? And how I went about giving and getting credit that I would change for sure. But I think that as far as how my career ended up and where I am now, living a lifestyle brand that I'm proud of and working with people that I love, and having that privilege to be able to chat with you on a Wednesday, truly, like, this is my job. It's great. No, I don't think I would change anything. I also didn't have the talent to be a play-by-play or color commentator, so maybe I'd have a different answer if I were you.
I did. Total wasted opportunity.
Yeah, there's still time. There's still time.
There is still time. I mean, that's true. My dad's second career happened when he retired from school teaching, and he chased his dream for 20 plus years. So I've definitely not given up on it. But the truth is, for me, it's actually not a dream anymore.
Fair.
It's
Funny how
just
that happens.
it's just a path that I definitely could have seen myself go down. But look, I wouldn't have the 3 kids I have. I probably wouldn't be married to the woman I'm married to. I love my life now. So yeah, I don't really look back on anything with quote unquote regret. I just look back on it with really clear eyes.
Yeah. It gets
You know,
clearer as you get older, for sure.
well, yeah, I mean, like coming out of Australia, you probably didn't know Australia changed your life, but looking back on Australia, Australia was the pivot point that changed your life,
Yeah, for sure.
right? And with the young kids like you have now, you probably have 3 or 4 of those moments still left.
For sure. I feel like I have 3 or 4 of those moments like every day with them, just looking at life through their eyes is just wild.
Yeah, totally. Look, my daughter went to Wagner College. She lives in Manhattan now. I mean, going to school in Staten Island's a thing. And then my son goes to Williams, just graduated, like going into the Berkshires for 4 years. That's a thing. So, you have all these new experiences that come about, and it's like they all shape you, and that's your life.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Yeah. Well, Lauren, we are. And that was, see, I told you I was talented. I mean,
Love it.
but the, this has been tremendous. You are smart, strong, tough. Like, we saw some of your toughness here, but like you said, you were harsh on some people that you came up through the ranks with. I get it. Like, especially as a female, and a female leader and climbing the ladder, which you were doing. I mean, but look, I've not always been perfect. I think our past mistakes are opportunities for us to change in the future.
Exactly.
I'm super proud of the fact that my number 2 here has been with me for 10 years. The next person's been with me 7. My ops guy's been with me almost 4. So like, people don't stay with people they don't like.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's super rewarding, and it's helped my company, because we've had a consistency in our service. But I love villain branding. I didn't know how to spell villain.
Now, see, listen, if that is the only thing we took away from this conversation, then it's been a successful hour.
It's not the only thing I took away from the conversation, but you will know. You have to understand, as we focus on what? Things that go right.
Of course. No, things that go wrong.
I don't focus on only things that go wrong, but I love chatting with you.
Me too.
Super enjoyable. And how can people get a hold of you?
Villainbranding.com. Just make sure you spell it right. VILLAIN.
Look it up in the dictionary.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm on LinkedIn, just spouting nonsense all the time too. So
I love you. I love your LinkedIn posts. You become more active, or twice a week, 3 times a week? What do you?
Trying to keep up with you.
All right. Yeah. Keep it up with me. Did you read my post that I had today? Well, this will tell you
No, I
what
haven't been on LinkedIn today.
Yeah. Idiot Jay didn't know how to hit, I hit discard. And
It's the worst.
LinkedIn's the worst. Their
Yeah.
save mechanism is the absolute worst.
It is, especially when you're scheduling. I've messed that up.
I think they literally have a department of people that watch things that get discarded and just laugh. Like, I think they have a whole,
I hope they do.
like, is it Reid Hoffman? Is that who's yeah, I think Reid Hoffman gets like personal messages. It's like, this jackass just deleted something, and he just giggles whenever he sees it.
That's great.
Anyway, Lauryn Warnick, Villain Branding. Appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on JaySapChats.
Love being here. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. All right. Take care.
Thanks for listening to JaySapChats. I hope you leave a little bit better than you came. And here's wishing you a beautiful week.